SportsCenter, Trey Hendrickson showed up to the Bengals facility today, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily happy. He's been seeking a new contract after he led the league in sacks last year with 17.5. Yesterday, he said he hadn't spoken to the team since the draft, and he has not gotten what was promised to him. Today, he talked more about the situation. Here he is.
A little bit transpired between me and Zach. We've tried to keep it as least amount personal as possible. But at some point in this process, it becomes personal. Being sent 30 days before mandatory camp, or however many days it is, that if I don't show up, I will be fined, alludes to the fact that something won't get done in that time frame.
Okay, then, our NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck joins us now on SportsCenter. And so, Tim, we just obviously heard from Trey Hendrickson. React to what you heard from him, and also the two sides still don't have a deal done. What do you make of it all?
Well, he mentioned that it's personal, that yes, this is a business, but, at some point it becomes personal, and it feels like he's taking this personally, like he's hurt, that he, feels betrayed a little bit. This guy with 35 sacks the last 2 seasons. Like, you can make the argument at times over the last 2 years, he's been as good as any pass rusher in the entire NFL. And so looking at, going into the last year of his deal, due to make about, $15 million in base salary, he probably should be making over $30 million a year when you look at what the market is for guys that are elite edge rushers. He's just 30 years old. And so, I think when he looks at all of that, he's probably saying, well, Cincinnati, wait a minute. Like, what have I not done to at least be able to have this conversation to figure if we can work something out, rather than you guys just saying, nope, we're not going to get anything done. And by the way, we're going to fine you if you don't show up for the mandatory minicamp. And so I understand how, Trey Hendrickson could feel hurt and betrayed, especially with the type of, member he's been for that organization since joining it after coming over from the Saints.
What's wild about this situation, too?
Breaking news in the NFL, Cincinnati Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson is not happy with the way that contract talks are going, and he is not shy about saying so. Today, he told reporters that he will not play next season under his current deal, which is set to pay him a little over $16 million. He also said that the stalled negotiations with the team have gotten, quote, personal. Hendrickson was named first-team All-Pro this past season for the first time in his career when he led the league with 17.5 sacks. Let's welcome in our own Lejay Dubible for more on this. So, Lejay, do you see a way for the Bengals to salvage this relationship they have with Hendrickson?
Yeah, JD, do the right thing and pay the man what he's worth.
Pay the man his money.
There's a clear market for what Trey Hendrickson should be making. When you look at Danielle Hunter, both him and Trey Hendrickson are 30 years old. The Houston Texans did a really good job making sure that Danielle Hunter wasn't going into the last year of his deal being paid underwhelmingly. They gave him a $35.6 million extension for 1 year because that's what the market is for the top rushers. JD, you talked about it. Trey Hendrickson, you see it right there. 17.5 sacks last season. 2023, 17.5 sacks. There is nobody in the NFL over the last 2 years, JD, that has more sacks than that guy on our screen right now. Matter of fact, he has 5 more sacks than the guy that's in second place behind him, who is TJ Watt. So when you look at what Trey Hendrickson has done, there's a clear-cut market for what he should be making in the NFL. I go back to what their executive vice president said a little while ago, Katie Blackburn. She said, it's on Trey Hendrickson to be happy at some point, and that Hendrickson should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. Well, I'd like to tell Ms. Blackburn something. The market is the market. What rates are you talking about? We just talked about Danielle Hunter making $35.6 million. They're the same age, and yet Trey Hendrickson has outpaced them when it comes to affecting and getting after the quarterback. The Bengals have handled this awfully, and they need to do the right thing because we saw last year, you can have an explosive offense averaging over 27 points a game. It doesn't matter if your defense can't slow anybody down. He was their best defender last year. You best believe they need him if they plan on going to the playoffs this year.
So how do you realistically see this playing out? What do you think is going to actually happen?
I think eventually the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson will meet somewhere in the middle. Honestly, this could end up being a scenario where if they feel like the number's too high, maybe they trade him away for like a 5th or 6th round draft pick and that new team extends him. But if you're the Bengals, right, you re-signed your top 2 receivers. Joe Burrow is under contract. You have admirations to go to the playoffs and go further in the playoffs. Let's not forget, in 2021, they went to the Super Bowl. In 2022, they went to the AFC Championship game. They're trying to get back to where they were at, and they need Trey Hendrickson to do this. So I know the Bengals brass would love to get a deal worked out, but again, the market is already set on what Trey Hendrickson should make. I don't understand why the Bengals continue to drag their feet. They did the same thing with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. It cost them a lot more money. Now they're doing the same thing with their best defensive star in Trey Hendrickson. I do believe ultimately, though, these two will meet in the middle somewhere and a deal will get done, because without Trey Hendrickson, they're going to have a same issue they had last year with that defense.
You know who else is hoping that this deal gets done? It's their 1st-round draft pick in Shamar Stewart. He came out saying that he plans on being around Hendrickson to learn from him as much as possible. Does this make sense a little bit more with the way that they went in the draft now?
And JD, this is why I'm scratching my head, because they went with Shamar Stewart, who I love, but is the biggest boom or bust prospect in this draft. So you're asking a lot for a guy that didn't really have production in college. I believe only 4.5 sacks in 4 years at Texas A&M, but has out of this world traits. You're asking a lot of him if Trey Hendrickson isn't there to come in and be the guy from day one to affect the quarterback. They took a guy that has a similar skill set as Shamar Stewart 2 years ago and Miles Murphy, and he just hasn't developed. So right now you got 2 former 1st-round picks that you're going to be banking on if Trey Hendrickson is not in the building, and both of these guys are boom or bust prospects. So if you're the Bengals, and again, you have playoff admirations, stop playing around, stop dragging your feet. The market has been set. Pay Trey Hendrickson his money because he deserves it.
And if they don't, say this just does not work out, what are some potential landing spots? Where do you like him when it comes to other teams in the league?
I think the Washington Commanders make a lot of sense. I was surprised. Me and Pete Prisco talked about this the other day, that they didn't attack the edge group in the draft or via free agency as well. They lost Dante Fowler to the Cowboys. He returns there. Trey Hendrickson, you see it, back-to-back 17-plus sack seasons. This is instant pass rush off the edge. And if you're the Commanders, you're a team that's vying to dethrone the NFC East and Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, who are in your division. So Trey Hendrickson to the Commanders